Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in Jew. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then please feel sorry for me and smash the subscribe button and the like button. And please do follow me on Twitter for some very controversial posts at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to the minas podcast. We haven't done one of these for such a long time. And here's an interview with Michael Shannon talking about Zack Snyder.
All right, before I let you go, I have to ask, the Snyder cut of Justice League, all of our hopes and dreams are pinned on this one. What do you know?
Oh, man. I'll tell you what I know is I feel for my friend Zack Snyder. He had a rough time of it, you know, between the struggles with his family and what he went through with Warner Brothers. Zack is a sweet, kind, gentle, hardworking, super conscientious human being, and I hope that this release gives him some sense of satisfaction or vindication or whatever, you know, because he's such a good person. He deserves better than he's been dealing with.
So Man of Steel was a good experience for you, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I still to this day can't even believe that he called me to do that. I mean, that did not seem like something that was within my reach. But yeah, he got me. He got me in there. So thank God.
All right, Michael Shannon, I'm going to stop.
There's one thing we know, because there's evidence throughout the DCEU that Zack Snyder picks his people well. Not in just terms of perfect casting aesthetically and artistically and performance-wise, but their personality. And Michael Shannon, I mean, no one would have picked Michael Shannon to play General Zod, for crying out loud. I'd never heard of him when I heard he'd been cast, but his performance, he totally understands this character and what Goya is trying to do with this character. And it's amazing. And the respect he shows Zack there. Everybody loves Zack Snyder. Who knows him? It's the people who don't know him, who don't like his film, who go really deep in the abuse towards him. And as you know, I was on the Louis Centeno show yesterday, and I asked Subjective Reviews and Louis, why? Why do people hate Zack so deeply? And we've discussed it here on this channel. When you've got a director like Quentin Tarantino that everybody loves, unique, controversial, probably more controversial than Zack Snyder, but everybody loves him. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, great to hear from Michael Shannon there. A fantastic guy, and who knows, maybe we'll see him in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I feel that the Flashpoint movie is becoming a much bigger movie than we ever imagined it would be. I think we just thought this was going to be a Flash origin story, or at least continue what Zack started off in his Justice League movie. But from the reports we're hearing, I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan coming in as Thomas Wayne, which was the original plan. We discussed it on today's DC Daily. I just think that's just one small thing. Of course, Martha Wayne, I expect maybe we'll even get her as the female Joker. And if you want to talk about representation and inclusion, wouldn't a standalone female Joker movie starring this wonderful female performer who played Martha Wayne in Batman vs. Superman, getting her own movie, how amazing would that be? I think that this Flash movie directed by Andy Muschietti could be the closest thing to Captain America Civil War that we could ever get. I think this is a major crossover event. I think everyone's going to be in it. I think Gal's Wonder Woman. I think Jason's Aquaman. I think everyone's going to appear in this movie, but in different positions, because it is a Flashpoint movie. but it's not a copy and pasted version of the graphic novel, which we already know because Andy Muschietti has already confirmed this months ago. So this is a much bigger movie than we ever imagined. And now Zack's back. That original plan for this movie. Now, I've kind of faced questions from people before. Is it too soon for Flashpoint? How many have we had? 6 or 7 DCEU movies? No, it's not. I've said before that you can actually intertwine the origin of this character, or not the origin, but kind of the first steps, if you like, and mix it in with a Flashpoint story, because Flashpoint echoes the emotions of Barry losing his mother and trying to put that right. I often go to bed at night and wonder if I could wake up and my mum was still alive, And so I think anyone would do what Barry does. But it's a very selfish act, don't get me wrong, because it destroys a lot of lives and it changes the reality when he fixes it. Because you can never totally fix a Flashpoint, because if you change every time you tread on a leaf, something changes, right? I'm fascinated within this movie. This movie has taken a long time in development. It's gone through directors, it's gone through writers. I think we're in a place now where AT&T know exactly what they're doing. They realise that DC is the biggest IP they have, but that it's not just DC that they're going to really make big again, and that's Harry Potter. Harry Potter is there, it's laying dormant. I know we've got the Fantastic Beasts kind of franchise, but we need more than that. I think AT&T are probably working very, very hard to try and get Dan Radcliffe and the rest of the team back together and to persuade JK to pen the continuation of the Harry Potter saga, because I think that's where the bucks are. So AT&T are very smart people. But in terms of what's going on with this Flashpoint movie, I am extremely pumped because the potential, and I was watching Chris Wong-Svensson live just half an hour ago, and he was talking about how he doesn't do tin foil anymore because all the stuff we were saying as tin foil is actually coming true. It's insane. I mean, I used to watch videos and people say, what if this could happen? What if that could happen? And I'm thinking, this is just wish fulfillment. This is never going to happen as badly as we wanted it. But it's all coming to pass. And by the way, that Thomas Wayne rumour that John Aaron Garza took to Zack Snyder over a Vero, and Zack liked what John said. So, again, it looks like Jeffrey D. Morgan, who was teasing this last year about putting a suit back on. Look, Jeffrey D. Morgan is one of the great actors, and I love his wife as well, Hillary. She's such a great lady. They're a great couple, by the way. Love their posts on Instagram and Twitter. But, maybe we can find a place for Hillary in the Snyderverse or the multiverse of DC film, where this is where we're headed. So, yes, the Flash movie, a bigger movie than we ever imagined. And this universe is expanding and expanding all the time. And it just makes me feel so happy that everything we can imagine, it's like AT&T are saying, just rub the lamp and whatever you want. Fuck 3 wishes. You can have as many wishes as you want. We've finally got people who understand the DC universe is so immersive, so big, and it can be bigger, and everyone can have their different visions. If you're a hardcore comic, there'll be a place for you. If you're a Snyder fan and you love the Snyderverse, there's a place for you. If you like Golden Age, there's a place for you. And if you love Silver Age, there's a place for you as well. There's a place for everyone. And this is where we're heading for now. And for me, it's extremely, as my favourite word all the time, is exciting. When I rewatch my videos, I say, Mick, you always say exciting. I know I can't help it because I'm always excited. But yeah, as a fan, and what's beautiful now is connecting with other fans like Luis Soteno and Subjective Reviews and all you on Twitter. And it's a happier place. I know it's funny, isn't it, how fandoms have these civil wars, and our fandom's no different. I just laugh. I just laugh at it because there's no reason to be negative. Forget about the clout. The only person who's got clout is Zack Snyder. We ain't got no clout. We have got clout. As a consumer, we've shown the power that we wield. But in terms of being elite, we are not elite filmmakers. And just because we helped something happen, it doesn't make us more special than anybody else. But yes, expect, as we know, Andy Muschietti's sister has teased that we're going to hear a lot of things very soon. Those things we're going to hear are going to be at the DC Fandom, right? So, as I say, lots of news, and I think after that event finished, we're going to be wiping our brow and thinking, bloody hell, we fantasized about this stuff, but we never thought it was actually going to happen. So, so passionate about DC, Snyder and everything else. J.J. Abrams is working hard as well. There's a lot of different voices now in the DC live action universe, and that should make everybody very excited. Supergirl in Zack Snyder's Justice League. This has been a bone of contention for me since we saw the trailers. I've spoken about this before. We see Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne looking at an image with a flapping red cape. We can see the boots, but we can see like something that's like a female's legs. Now, I brought this to the attention of John Aaron Garza because he seems to have a line to Zack, and he claims it's definitely Superman. But I'm sorry, John, I know you know stuff and I don't have a line to Zack. I believe that is Supergirl he's looking at, and I believe that Supergirl is in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I don't know. I'm just saying it as a fan who thinks stuff and wants stuff. Listen, let's go back to the history here, right? First of all, we know that Zack Snyder wrote a Supergirl prequel comic, linking her into the Kryptonian history, and that she was sent to Earth, and we know that there's a missing compartment in the spaceship when Cal is exploring, and there's no one in there. There's others with skeletons in there, but there's a missing one. That's clearly a hint for Supergirl. Now, actually, Zack was answering some questions in the Man of Steel watch-along, and he said he would absolutely love to do a Supergirl movie. So that's really interesting as well. But I do believe she may not be front and centre. Like many things are not front and centre in Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's a really long movie, 4 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours, or whatever it is, right? That's a lot of movie, right? So I think she's bound to be involved. I know this is not the way it's going to be because of the way it all plays out in a prequel comic. But I always thought it would have been nice. You know the tornado flashback in Man of Steel? The little girl with dark hair that Clark's holding? Wouldn't it be amazing if that was actually Kara? I know that's not possible, but I just think the whole idea of him holding his cousin when there's a dangerous moment coming, and, the moment when he sees his dad dies, and then he doesn't know, but his cousin that he's going to share such a beautiful relationship with is in his arms. So probably not what's going to happen, but I always like the idea that that's someone. And now I don't know who, but it could be someone, because the time frame, he's probably in his early 20s when Jonathan dies. So obviously Kara could get a bit older and start being a teenager. So look, anything's possible, but I've always believed that Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl, was going to be involved. I love the character. I love Melissa Benoist in Arrowverse, but unfortunately, the way the show's gone, it's disappointing, because that show could have been amazing, and maybe we'll see her in a DC film crossover, because we've got the multiverse now, and everyone's a part of this. If Ezra can be in a scene with Grant Gustin, anything's possible. And how many times I'm going to say this? I'm 120% sure, yes, 120% sure that Grant Gustin's Flash will be in the Flashpoint movie, and what we saw in Crisis was a prequel to that. And as I say, it's being opened up, and without Walter Hamada's quick thinking, none of this would be possible. And I know that Jim Lee is getting a lot of credit here, but let's not forget something. Jim Lee is just an artist. He's an ambassador. He's gone around helping these situations, ironing out situations. He's a very intelligent man. But it's Walter Hamada who's running this universe now, and he's creating this multiverse and crossing over characters. And as I say, it's such a great time to be a DC fan. And then when we look at Henry Cavill's Superman and the future of Superman, what does that say? What's going to happen? Now, I said something to you maybe 6 to 8 months ago about a Justice Society of America Superman actually being in Black Adam and not Henry Cavill's Superman. Now, there was a report from someone saying that Henry won't actually be in Black Adam, but The Rock has hinted about Superman for years. In an interview, he said he didn't want to talk about Superman in Black Adam quite yet, but maybe down the line. So that was an interesting thing to say as well. What the report actually said, that Henry Cavill's Superman will probably cross over with Shazam in Shazam 2. That makes a lot of sense to me. We saw it wasn't Henry, but clearly Henry's Superman. It turns up in the canteen, the school canteen at the end of Shazam. So we want to continue a link to that relationship, right, with him and Shazam. So I think that's locked in, that he will be in Shazam 2. And I'm guessing what I said quite a few months ago about, because we know a Justice Society of America, let's start again. We know that the JSA are actually going to be in Black Adam, right? So it kind of makes sense that there could be a JSA version of Superman rather Henry Cavill. So this JSA Superman is actually the Superman who fights the Rock's Black Adam. And then they've introduced another Superman, and it's awesome. I'm trying not to say exciting all the time, right? It's too repetitive, right? But I can't help myself. And it's my OCD, that's the problem. But yeah. So that's how I see that. It seems kind of, it's impossible that there'll be a JSA Superman, but we're getting the Justice Society of America in Black Adam already, so there's no reason why we can't have a JSA Superman as well. I know a lot of people are desperate for Henry Cavill to cross over in Black Adam, and maybe it is his Superman in that film, and I'd be even more down for that. But the way I'm sniffing it with multiple versions of characters, this whole multiverse that they're teasing now, this does seem a more realistic way to go at things. So away from DC, we're going to cross to Doctor Who, which I was a big fan of. I'm still a big fan of Doctor Who. Listen, what's happened with Doctor Who in the past couple of years is devastating, really. When you look about, creatively speaking, what a low it's gone under, ratings dropping, the culture war has been immersed in it as well. It's very sad for Doctor Who fans. I think Jodie Whittaker is a brilliant actor, but she's no doctor. We all know that. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There were hundreds of female actors who could have played this role wonderfully and creatively, but Chris Chibnall cast his friend from Broadchurch, and that's where the problems begin. But I also feel that it doesn't matter who he cast, with the way he's done it creatively and artistically, it just doesn't work. It doesn't matter who you cast. He hasn't given the actor a chance. And there was this kind of situation where she was asked what she's brought to the character, and she goes, everything's on the page. And then he said, Jodie's brought so much to the character, but she's kind of contradicted that. So it's pretty obvious here, because everyone who's played the Doctor before has brought something from their personality. This is what's so important about playing the Doctor. You're not just an actor playing a character, you're putting your part of yourself into this character. It's a performance. It's like you're standing on stage at your local theatre. It's such a big performance-based character, and the core characteristics that the Doctor has. And once he or she regenerates, there's different characteristics, and that personality of the actor, male or female, who's playing the Doctor, needs to be brought in. But because Doctor Who is now being run by people who have more interest in political ideology than entertainment and great storytelling and character development, Doctor Who has been flushed down the toilet. And that's the shame. I hope someday, before it's cancelled because nobody's watching anymore, someone grabs hold of it and says, do you know what? This character, there you go, that's what I was talking about. Did you see that? The legs, that's a woman's legs. That's what I'm telling you. Anyway, forget it. Talking about Doctor Who. But what's really amazing to me about this iteration of Doctor Who, how they're still trying to persuade us to watch it. They're forcing this Doctor down our throat. So the other day, they had David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker via video on the James Corden show. And she was there and he was there, and they were both dressed up in their Doctor Who costumes. And look, it was great to see them both. I don't have anything personally against Jodie, But again, she was, doubling down that it's great that a female's playing the Doctor and it's someone for young women to look up to. I agree. It's good. There should be female versions of the Doctor, and there should be female characters for young women to look up to. And in some aspects, young men like to look up to female heroic characters as well. And that's a good thing, but she's doubling down. And all it does is trigger people. But the point is, females looked up to and dressed like the Doctor when he was a male as well. Let's get that right. But there should be female versions of the Doctor, but you've got to make sure you cast the right person. And you're actually, conscientious enough to make the effort to make it an entertaining and brilliant version of the Doctor, because if you're just casting someone to make a political point, if you're just casting someone because they happen to be a female, then you're as sexist as the people who were just casting men for all those years because you didn't want to cast a woman, right? Where you were scared it wasn't going to work. So Doctor Who creatively has gone down the mire. I do prefer season 12 to season 11. At least it had a good, interesting mystery box arc. I liked that. I enjoyed the finale, but let's not forget that they actually, in the marketing for the finale, were actually promoting. They were literally using Sacha Dhawan's Master for the marketing rather than Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And when you think about that, you realise it's not just us, the audience, who have no faith in this person playing the Doctor. They realise that she's an unsellable commodity. She's never been a lead. She doesn't have the screen presence to be a lead, and that falls short. And the way she plays the Doctor, even when she's stuck in the Matrix and she's talking to herself and she's about to escape the Matrix, when she smiles or does something, it's so cringe. And it's a shame because she just doesn't get what this character is. She doesn't know this character. She doesn't love this character. And she doesn't have to love this character. I used to cut ham on a deli. I didn't particularly like ham very much, or onion barges, right? But I still sold them, effectively. That's not the point. The point being, she just doesn't have an idea how to play this character. And Chris Chibnall, who claims to be a Doctor Who fan, hasn't given her any ideas about this show. And to say, I've never watched the other Doctors before and it's not important, it is, Jodie. You need to have a handle on this long-running character that's been going since 1963. And to say it's not important to grab hold of what it has been in the past is very, very problematic. But again, all she's interested in, and everyone working on that iteration, is ideologies and representation. And although I say that's very important, it can't just be that. And if that is in place of entertainment and good storytelling and character development, then we're all wasting our time. But this is what television has become, unfortunately. And finally, on this Mick Minas podcast, I want to talk about the golden age of television. For me personally, the golden age of television wasn't a TV I watched as a kid, even though I loved it. And it's certainly not all these, streaming originals, these Netflix originals or these Amazon originals. For me, the golden age of television was about 2000 to about maybe 2011. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to list off a bunch of TV series first and tell you what I believe are part of the golden age of television. Alias, 24, which I want to speak a lot about in a moment. Smallville, Prison Break, Lost, Life on Mars, Doctor Who, the early days of New Who, right? These, Torchwood, these are shows, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but from 2000 to 2011, that was the golden age of television. When you think about a show like Lost and what it offered to its viewer and consumer, there's just not a TV show. They brag about, these originals on these platforms, but the truth is, TV and films now are obsessed with political and social commentary, and they forget to give the audience something. And this is what we are lacking now. And I'm sure, as I say, when you look at Alias, which is a female-led spy thriller, she's a double agent. We see her with her friends, her love life, But it all works. Alias is a brilliant show created by J.J. Abrams and just proof of what a genius J.J. Abrams was. But at the birth of this golden age of television is 24, starring Kiefer Sutherland, a film actor who couldn't get any work anymore in film. Why that is? Because he's one of my favourite actors. I love Kiefer. But I love him even more for what he gave me personally for 24. When you look at that show, 9 seasons that they segregated into days, day 1 to 9. So the final one was 24 Live Another Day, which was day 9, right? All shot in real time, or that's how the show's depicted, in real time, right? So that's how the show's set. So you have a timer at the bottom, not a timer, but you have a clock at the bottom, and you know what time it is. The whole thing when the times come up, and then you've got like a scene up there, and it's like multi-screened. It's amazing. It was pioneering, but this show never had any dead air. It didn't have any fillers. Well, it did, but we didn't notice them because this is how clever these people are. This show is something that the culture war doesn't like, that social justice warriors don't like. They call it a toxic masculinity show, too violent, too aggressive, too controversial. But the truth is, and I know why they don't like it, because it's a Fox show, right? And we know that Fox has always been really conservative. But let's think about this show, this high-octane concept show that's supposed to be racist and sexist, right, and too violent. First African-American president. First female president. Oh, yes, my friends. Oh, yes. The black president, David Palmer, played brilliantly by Dennis Haysbert, has this beautiful chemistry with Kiefer and his character, Jack Bauer. They have this beautiful friendship. And what I loved about the Palmer family as this presidential family is they reminded me of the Kennedys. And that family falls to pieces in the end. And then we go to day 5, the very beginning, where they kill off David Palmer. Now, I think that was really the beginning of the end for the fans. I personally think it was wrong to kill him off. I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to show that nobody's safe on this show. We already knew that. I mean, remember Ryan Chappelle having to kill himself from a terrorist's demands, right? Do you remember that, right? So we already knew nobody is safe, and it's a compelling show where anyone can die. But I just feel that David Palmer was so integral to the show from the pilot. And his relationship with Kiefer's character, Jack Bauer, it was a beautiful relationship. And even when we go to day 4, when we see him mid-season and all of a sudden he has to pick up the reins, right? Because the president is killed in a plane explosion or an accident, I can't remember. But basically, he should have been there to the very end. That relationship should have kept on developing because it was one of the most beautiful character dynamics on television. And it was some of the greatest power of what 24 was and had, because even though it was a very aggressive show, there was a lot of violence and there was a lot of action. There was a lot of humanity in it. There was a lot of emotion in it. And I think a friend of mine, when I introduced her to it many years ago, said it's all about the onion layers on this character of Jack Bauer, just peeling all the time. You do not see that on modern day television. When people say to me, is 24 the greatest television show ever made? I have to say yes. Game of Thrones had more of a budget. It probably had greater production values, but you couldn't tell by looking at 24 that it didn't have the budget that Game of Thrones had. Game of Thrones is a hardcore, brilliant, legendary, legacy, iconic show, and I'm not disputing its greatness in the annals of the Hall of Fame, but it's not my favourite, and it doesn't really mean as much to me as 24 does. 24 was amazing because it introduced all these characters and the villains were so hardcore. But the whole thing was what we were watching for Jack Bauer. And Kiefer is, as you see the character of Jack Bauer, that's what he's like on set. And I think there was a falling out between Freddie Prinze Jr. and Kiefer Sutherland, and Freddie Prinze Jr. lost his job. No big deal, right? But the point being, people had to understand something, that this show meant something to Kiefer, and he wanted it to be its very best. So when you were on set, if you weren't as committed to it as he was, you would know about it. He became executive producer of the show very quickly, or one of them, right? So he had a lot more authority, and maybe sometimes he got a bit carried away. But the whole point is, this is the beauty of Kiefer Sutherland. And I mean, I first saw him on Flatliners. That's the first film I saw him in. And you know what grabbed me? It's that intensity Kiefer brings to a role. And that intensity is what, the people had to put up with on the set. You have to be as committed as him. You have to get it right. You have to be at least trying to get it right. And if you're not committed, you'd be in trouble. But Kiefer Sutherland is one of the great characters. He's also a musician. He's also got a band. It's just brilliant. And what he did for 9 seasons on that show, and what, these creators did. These people were the people who used to work on Falcon Crest. Amazing. How'd you come up with this idea? And I mean, Kiefer always says if it wasn't for the popularity of the show in season 1 in the UK, the show would have been cancelled in America. But it did pick up popularity very quickly. I would think, seasons 1 to 4 were very popular. It was one of the biggest shows, multiple Emmy wins every year. And I think season 5 did really well for itself as well. I think season 6, for a lot of fans, is the downturn. Now, I enjoyed all the seasons, and I'm not here to say, well, I didn't like this season or that season. It's true that season 6 maybe didn't hit with people like the other ones. And I even admit it probably wasn't as compelling as the other seasons, but I still enjoyed the fact that we met Jack's dad, and Jack has to stop his father. That was amazing and compelling, and it still worked. And we still had that fabulous scene with Hella and Bauer, and Hella saying, you're cursed, Jack. You're always going to want to go back to the job no matter what you say. So that was a great moment. And then we came back with day 7 after the Writers Guild of America's strike. So they had a delay. Day 7 was amazing because it pitted Jack's former friend, Tony Almeida, against him. He had to stop him. And it was an amazing thing to have these once friends not being enemies, but Jack having to stop him. Because Tony at this point, who we thought was dead, but wasn't dead, right, is trying to get revenge on the government for what happened to his wife, Michelle, and the baby that she was carrying. So, again, it's a brilliant. Day 7 is brilliant. And then we take, that female FBI agent and bring her into day 8. And I mean, day 8, which was originally, billed as the final season. Well, we didn't know, but ratings started to drop, and they decided they weren't going to give them the budget for it anymore, which is a shame. And I was devastated because my attention would always be on 24. No matter what people said about it, I would have kept on watching Kiefer in that role. But day 8 is amazing because it starts as one thing, and all of a sudden, and I forgot her name now, but this female agent who Jack's fallen in love with now, who he met on day 7, and she gets killed. And then Jack finds out that the Russians did it, so he starts killing these Russian ambassadors and politicians. Jack's in it up to here. It's amazing. I can't even describe to you how great this show is. And the way they finished day 8 was that Jack was on the run from the Russians, and he would just be out there, and, he'd be out there, saving the world without us knowing about it anymore. But then the big news broke that 24 Live Another Day was happening. A 24 adventure set in London. It was amazing. And again, these people got it, how they finished Jack's story. Jack Bauer should never have a happy ending. I don't like happy endings, and I like the way that in the end it showed you how much he valued his friendship with Chloe. Chloe is kidnapped by the Russians. They want to swap Chloe for Jack. Jack does it, and in the end, and when Chloe says, you don't have to do this, and this makes me really emotional, he holds her by the hand and he walks off. I love that show. I love Kiefer Sutherland, and it means a hell of a lot to me. And just to think the passion and the honesty that went into this golden generation of TV, shows like Prison Break and Doctor Who and Torchwood, and Alias and Lost. It was a very, very special time for television, where TV shows were finally had the budgets to look like features. And it was a beautiful time. And then the culture war came in, and it's over. But you know what the great thing is? We can watch those TV shows on platforms, streaming platforms, on our Blu-rays and DVDs, and they can't take them away from us. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow, of course, with the DC Daily, and hopefully if you enjoy it and it gets enough views, I'll do another one like this, another podcast like this, because I've actually had a lot of fun doing it. So have a lovely Sunday, and I'll see you again soon.